Welcome to 5 Minutes for Good, a place for leading voices to share initiatives that go beyond the commercial. In this second series, we're focusing on travel in Asia. We'll hear the flip side and discover what the travel industry is doing for good in that region. Following a short intro, guests will be given their 5 minutes for good, firing up the engines, inspiring action, and making us think that was 5 minutes well spent.
5
minutes for good.
Welcome, Andy Eastham, to your 5 minutes for good. Thank you for joining the second series of this podcast. This time we're focusing on travel in Asia. But Andy, before we get into your 5 minutes for good, tell those who don't necessarily know you a little about yourself.
Great to be here. Thank you, Phil. I'm Andy Eastham, Head of PR and Communications at touring specialist Wendy Wu Tours. We are the UK's leading specialist tour operator to Asia, from the UK, Australia and New Zealand.
So, Andy, this is your 5 minutes for good. Over to you.
Wonderful. Thank you, Phil. So, I'm talking today about solo travel. So going solo and finding your tribe the specialist way. I guess to start off, few corners of travel have changed as profoundly in the past decade as solo travel. And I've had the privilege of watching that change from the inside at Wendy Wu Tours. Solo travel has become, one of the most powerful cultural shifts of our time. And once it was considered an act of necessity, something you did because no one else was available to travel. Today, it's actually an act of intent. It's about taking ownership of your time, your curiosity, and your personal story. Globally, more than half of travelers now plan to take at least one solo journey in the next 12 months. A figure unthinkable just a few years ago. The motivations are as varied as the travelers themselves. And crucially, solo no longer means single. In fact, it includes people in relationships who just sometimes crave different perspectives and experiences. Friends who travel independently but meet along the way, and those who simply prefer to explore at their own rhythm. At Wendy Wu Tours, about 60% of our travelers now travel solo. Some join departures designed entirely for solo guests, whilst others choose mixed groups with couples and friends. The defining thread here isn't status, it's agency, the ability to travel on your own terms. So why are so many people deciding to go alone? Well, the simple answer is freedom, but the deeper answer is growth. When you travel solo, you move from observation to participation. Every small success, finding the right platform in Tokyo, ordering breakfast in Hanoi, negotiating a tuk-tuk in Delhi, becomes evidence of your own capability. Psychologists call it mastery, the satisfaction of managing the unfamiliar. And that mastery spills into every corner of life. 2/3 of solo travelers report better mental well-being after their trips. Travel strips away the noise and replaces it with clarity. It removes the daily autopilot and reintroduces deliberate living. And you know what? The irony is that solo travel often makes people more social. Without the buffer of a companion, you talk to the waiter, the guide, the person next to you on the boat. You become approachable. You see humanity close up. Solo travel, in truth, it isn't about independence. It's about interdependence. It's learning that we are at our best when we can stand alone and connect deeply. So here's where specialist touring comes in, and it's vital. For many travelers, the barrier to solo travel isn't fear of the unknown. It's the logistics of the unknown. Where to go, how to get there, whether it's safe. And specialist touring removes that friction. It provides the framework that makes freedom possible. And touring has evolved enormously. Gone are the days of rigid itineraries and head counts on a coach. Modern touring now is curated experiences, smaller groups, richer context, and access to places an individual could never arrange alone. It's expertise without confinement. That everything included model, the flights, the meals, the visas, the transfers, it isn't about luxury, it's about presence. When you don't have to think about logistics, you're free to experience meaning. The idea of touring used to conjure an image of monuments and museums, but today it's broadened into something far more adventurous. In Asia, they're hiking Vietnam's rice terraces, crossing Japan by bullet train, and sleeping under a desert sky in India's Thar Desert. These experiences were once reserved for the intrepid few. Now, thanks to specialist touring, they're available to anyone with curiosity and a passport. The democratization of adventure is one of the quietest and best stories in modern travel. When adventure is structured, it isn't diluted. It's shared safely, ethically, and with purpose. That's what makes it for good. Now, every solo journey seems to follow a rhythm of its own. Courage at the beginning, connection in the middle, and confidence by the end. But that progression isn't mechanical, it's emotional. It's the quiet unfolding of what happens when a person decides to test both the world and themselves. So for example, in China, for instance, courage often reveals itself in silence. There's a moment on the Great Wall when the group stops talking and the only sound is wind moving through the stones. You can watch it happen. Someone who arrived nervous, who doubted whether they should have even come alone, suddenly realizes they're standing on one of the world's great wonders through their own effort. It's pride mixed with disbelief, and it's the first click of transformation. Many come home saying they expected beaches and temples, but found generosity instead. Across all these landscapes, the itinerary changes, but the inner journey repeats. Solo travelers begin tentatively, seeking reassurance. Midway, they start to share, to laugh, to trust, and by the end, they walk a lot taller. What's remarkable is that the geography becomes secondary. It's not China or Cambodia or Japan that transforms them. It's the act of being open in those places. Now, over the years, I've watched extraordinary transformations. Someone arrives cautious, apologizing even for traveling alone. Yet 10 days later, they're organizing the group photo, laughing loudest at the dinner table and planning their next trip. By the middle of every tour, labels dissolve. The words solo, couple, friendship group, they stop mattering. What's left is shared humanity. People discovering that belonging doesn't require similarity, only openness. That, I think, is the deepest good of all. So what does for good truly mean? It isn't a tagline. It's an ecosystem of positive consequence. Good for the traveller because confidence built abroad changes behaviour at home. Good for the community because respectful engagement keeps cultures alive and economies resilient. And good for the planet because small groups guided by knowledge leave lighter footprints than mass tourism ever could. Solo travel done the specialist way turns personal courage into collective benefit. Every step of self-discovery becomes a gesture of mutual respect. And imagine, just imagine, if everyone traveled that way, a little braver, a little more curious, a little more connected. What kind of world might we come home to?
Wow, fabulous. A couple of things I'm blown away by. 60% choose to travel solo.
Yeah.
Quite a fact.
Yeah, it is. I've been on so many groups. I've talked to solo travelers. We do as well. We do online travel shows, which I host. And it's so wonderful when you see, someone, I don't know, it could be any age, but, in their 70s or whatever, who haven't traveled, who've always wanted to do this. And then, you get other solo travelers speaking and reassuring them. And then, a month later, they're sending you their photos of their experiences.
Yeah.
I think it just blows you away. It is why we do what we do.
Well, you painted a picture there that's quite extraordinary. I was walking through every territory as you were revealing them. And frankly, again, I'm having to reshape my next holiday, I think. Before we close, it's time to drop your guard and go a little bit off-piste by me asking you if there was one thing you could do for 5 minutes that isn't necessarily for good, What might that be?
Oh, well, Phil, it's got to be if I had 5 minutes, not necessarily good, but you know what? Because I love travel, it would still be travel. I would spend time wandering a Kyoto side street at dusk. I'd have my camera in hand, steam curling from a ramen bar, neon glinting on the wet pavements, and I'd just listen to the hum of conversation and the sound of life just continuing. Because for me, that's travel at its purest. Ordinary moments, notice deeply. That would be my 5 minutes.
Well, Andy, I can concur with you there. Having experienced that myself, it is just the most magical of parts of the world and of Japan. So, on that note, Andy Eastham, thank you. That was 5 minutes well spent.
That was 5 minutes.
That was 5 minutes well spent.